RoboQuest has been my most recent addiction, and it has a lot of guns in it. And today, we're not going to be allowed to use a single one. Yeah, you heard me right. I'm going to be playing through the entire game using only melee weapons. Now, I'll be honest, at first, this wasn't even something that I considered doing or making a video on. But then I looked through YouTube and I couldn't find a single other person that had done a video like this, so I knew I had to. In the run that you're seeing right now, I'm playing as Recon, and unfortunately I did not actually start with a melee weapon, so I just have to dash around and hit the enemies with the bash attack. That all changed though when I found my glorious Panchaku sitting here ready for me to grab up. Now, for the poor souls that don't actually know what Panchaku is, it's a reference to an amazing video game called Dead Cells, and if you haven't played it, then I highly recommend it. But the reference weapon is almost as good here as it is when it's in Dead Cells. It has this little combo string that you can go through, and then your final hit does extra damage, which is going to be great for us, especially on some of the more difficult boss fights. As you can see, I'm going to pick critical up by 10% here. That doesn't actually increase my critical chance by 10%, but the damage that critical attacks do goes up by 10%, which right now actually does not help us at all, as I'm unable to hit critical attacks with melee weapons. But I'm hoping that by taking that, I'll also get lucky enough to get auto crit. With that combination, it'll be a lot better. Now, I just took out the first elite enemy of the entire run, and it was pretty easy. I think this first run that I was having, just as a test run, was going incredibly well. When I came up with the idea for this video, I never actually considered or stopped to think about how difficult it would be. I just kind of jumped in and started recording right away, so I was figuring out how hard it would be as we went. The close combat level up that you just saw me take is going to be extremely important in all of these runs that I'm playing as Recon, because it means if you're close to an enemy, I think it's within 7 meters, you just start doing 40% increased damage, which is amazing. As you can see, I've already made it to the first kind of challenge room where they just spawn a bunch of enemies and you have to keep killing them until the boss health bar, I think it's kind of a boss health bar at the top, goes down. These rooms typically aren't too bad, except I have seen a lot of people, including myself, die to them later on in the runs, especially towards the end of the game. They can get pretty ridiculous, but really anything in these first two rooms is not going to be too difficult, even without using guns. Now, while you watch me fight through these last little enemies in this area, I just wanted to say that if you've enjoyed the video this far, or if you're still watching, a like and a subscribe is always appreciated. Also remember, if you do leave a comment down below, I read and respond to all of them, so always feel free. I love reading your comments. But with that being said, we have officially come upon the first boss of the entire run, and you guys can't judge me too much for my performance here. Digimole in all the runs that I tried while trying to beat this challenge has consistently been the hardest boss fight for me. I really don't know what my problem was. You can see I tried to jump on his head here and get some damage in, but with that attack that he has where he shoots all those projectiles, it just completely shreds your health bar. And every single time that I fought him, I died. That's not true. I think I beat him one time. And it's just because I took the fight super slow. That's okay though, like I said, that was just a test run, and in my next run I was lucky enough to actually start with the Panchaku weapon, which is a way better start than we had last time. If you remember, I didn't even have a weapon in the first area. I was just walking around using the dash. So hopefully this is signs of good things to come, starting with the weapon already. And it looks like I was right, because we got to pick up the Robo Fuel perk, which is one of my favorites in the entire run that I did. It means that we'll get, at least at maximum, you'll get 16% damage and fire rate boost, which is going to be really important for this run. Something that I tried to do a lot is increase my fire rate, because it means that I'll be obviously swinging the pans faster and getting to that last extra damaging hit more often. So that's really what I was going for a lot of these runs. And whenever I could, even if the buff didn't directly apply to me, if I had the power cells, I would come through and just buy really any of these perks that I could. It's really important, at least I thought it was, to spend as many power cells as you could just to kind of power level as much as you can. But with that, we're on to Billy Boom, and I made quite the fatal mistake on this fight. Now, this is my first time actually doing this boss fight, and if you can see that little yellow caution bar building up there, if you get it too high, he will explode and kill you instantly. There you go, end of run. You do get an achievement for it, but I was not aware of the feature the first time that I tried to fight, and it ended tragically. Thankfully though, that fight takes place pretty early on in the game, so we didn't lose too much progress, not too much time went into that. And also in this next run, I got the Power Fist, which is, I think it's a pretty fun weapon. I do actually prefer Panchaku, but that could be a little bit biased considering how much I love Dead Cells. Weirdly enough though, even though the Power Fist and the Panchaku are very different weapons, the build that I've been going for with both of them is actually pretty similar. And it's pretty simple too. All it is getting my fire rate high enough and my overall damage, especially against bosses, high enough to the point where I can kill things quickly enough and hopefully not take too much damage. You can see here while I'm doing the Billy Boom boss fight, I'm trying to stay a little bit farther away from him and not just rush in immediately like I did last time. I'm just learning that this is a fight that, at least with melee, you have to take a lot slower, considering that you're all up in his face the whole time, and that's what triggers his explosion. I did find a nice little sweet spot where you could kind of follow around him and still do damage without actually building up that bar, which was nice, but most of this fight I spent running around and just waiting for the caution bar to go down. I do think, other than that, obviously that one chance for him to instantly kill you, it's a pretty easy and laid back boss fight overall. I also forgot to mention up until this point that I switched over from Recon and I'm now playing as Guardian. He comes with a little invulnerability shield that you can hold up for a couple seconds, and I use that to help a lot. It just helps when you're so close to the enemies to be able to not take damage, at least for a few seconds, and then you can kind of retreat and let it recharge. I probably later on will be switching between quite a few characters just to see which ones work the best. This, like I said, is not something I've ever done before, so I was experimenting a lot with the builds. Thankfully though, once you get into low enough health and you can pull the little switch on his back, the boss fight gets a lot easier because you no longer have to worry about being too close to him, so we can finish him off pretty quickly. And then you can see right after the boss fight, I picked up an ability to make some of my attacks do guaranteed critical damage, so that'll help with our long-term damage quite a bit. One thing though that I'm sure you have noticed, especially considering long-term damage with the Power Fist compared to the Panchaku, is you never have to reload the Panchaku, whereas the Power Fists will overheat and you gotta take at least a second to let them cool down. And I've found that, I never look at the bar to see how charged they are or how overheated they are, so I always just keep attacking until they overheat, which is kind of my bad, but it's a melee only build, so I don't usually focus on the little ammo counter too much, so that is one reason that I prefer the Panchaku. Also, for anybody wondering why I'm hiding so much here, this enemy that I'm fighting is probably one of my least favorites in the entire game, and I've had so many runs ended by them, so I'm just trying to be a little extra cautious as to not end the run on the spot right now. This is another one of those enemies that if you're able to use a gun and fight it from a distance, they're really not too bad. But they can shoot out so many projectiles that if you're attacking them and you're too close to them, they can stack so much damage on you so quickly that they're really dangerous. But I did make it out alive, and now I'm doing one of those challenge rooms that we talked about at the very beginning of the video. This is kind of what I meant by they can get pretty hard, and I did eventually end the run right there. That's okay though, all it means is that I'm going to have to start another run, and considering how many we've already been through in this entire video, I'm going to be trying to move more quickly through them. You can see here I finally upgraded my pan all the way to the purple epic quality, which should help me quite a bit in the run. I got that done pretty early. I also didn't manage to blow up Billy Boom this time, which is always a plus. That boss fight went pretty quickly. I think it's because I was using Panchaku instead of the Power Fists. You can see there, I've really been stacking up the attack speed for this build, so I felt like I was flying through the levels with this build, and it's by far the best one that I've had up until this point. Back in the challenge room that I died at last time, you can see I also have the fire damage on the Panchaku now, which is just stacking even more damage over time. At this point in the recording, I was pretty confident that if I was going to beat this challenge with any of these runs, that it was going to be this one. Everything just lined up so perfectly, and like I said, I really was just blasting through these levels and doing really well. For most of the time, I didn't even take that much damage, and if I did, I healed it right back, so I was feeling really confident at this point. But since I was progressing so quickly, we finally got to the second main boss fight of the entire run, the Dredge Ball, and I thought this was a fun boss fight, but I really didn't struggle with it too much. It looks like he shoots a lot of projectiles, which you would think would be a similar situation to Diggy Mole, but for whatever reason, I didn't seem to be taking that much damage in this fight, and he also didn't really seem to have an incredible amount of health. So for most of the fight, I just ran back and forth a little bit, and obviously tried to hit him as many times as I could with that finishing move on the Panchaku combo, and that's really about all the fight had. I know that while you're watching this, it really looks like all the mines laid all over the ground would be a huge problem, but he only really does it in one part of the fight when he has the shield up, and even if you do run into them, they don't seem to do an incredible amount of damage. Especially, it's even easier since you can hit them with your melee weapon in order to blow them up, and usually you can do that from a far enough distance that they don't actually hurt you. So this fight kind of seems scary, but it really, reality is not nearly as bad as you would think it would be. I will say though, with all this time that I have just finishing up this boss fight, I wanted to say, I know I said a lot, especially recently, but the channel has been doing so good recently that I feel like it's mandatory that I just talk about it at least a little bit in my more recent videos. I feel like every time I upload, I'm getting subscribers and comments, and as I've said a million times, I love responding to all of your comments, and it really does make my day whenever I see that I got a new subscriber or somebody liked a video. So I just wanted to thank everybody so much for supporting my channel so much recently. It really does mean the world to me. But with that, we are getting towards the very end of the run, and all you have to do in this level is run around and take out these 4 elite enemies. It's really not too difficult even when you are doing melee only. They, at this stage in the game, don't have a super huge health pool. In fact, most of this level I just kind of ran around and killed the random enemies in order to level up a little bit. That way, hopefully I'd be a little bit stronger for the final boss fight. But I've never really struggled too hard in the challenge in order to complete right before the final boss, and it's honestly just a great time to run around and try to, like I said, collect some XP if you've maybe not reached a high enough level at this point in the run. But with that level done, we've killed all those 4 elite enemies, and we can now finally move on to the actual final boss of the run. Now this fight is very difficult in my opinion, especially with melee only, since he hovers over the acid quite a bit, and obviously when you're doing melee you have to be pretty close, so you're pretty susceptible to falling in and taking quite a bit of damage. Also, the shield that he puts up means that you can't just bounce on his head over and over again and get your damage in that way. So doing it with a melee weapon only certainly isn't undoable, but is quite challenging. This is actually my second attempt at doing the fight. One of my previous runs did make it to this point, but I unfortunately died and also quit playing the game that day because I was so upset. He was on his... I mean, he must have had like 10 health left. Anyways, that's not here or now, because in this run I was successful in killing him. You can see right now he's on half health, and I'm just trying to very nervously dance around the arena and get my damage in while I can. The strategy of jumping on his head, even though you can only do it in short bursts, does actually work pretty well for this boss fight. I've never done this boss fight with a gun, funnily enough, so I don't know how the fight is balanced then. I don't know if it's easier to stay away from him. But really my strategy in this fight with my melee weapons is just to run away whenever my health gets too low, and then dash towards him using the Recon's Blink ability, and jump on his head to get in a bunch of damage. But with that, that's really the entire fight. That's all I did, and I almost died, but I did successfully beat RoboQuest using only melee weapons. But with all that said, this is the end of the video. Obviously, I just beat the game, and I just once again wanted to say thank you so much for everybody that has been supporting my channel so much recently. It's making me so happy, and I would love to be able to do this as my full-time job at some point, and it really does seem like you might make that a reality. So I can't thank everyone enough for that. And with that, I hope you all have a great day, and goodbye.